the battle that determines every victory. Every person fights battles. Some are visible, most are not. The visible battles happen in offices, in classrooms, on playing fields, inside businesses, inside relationships. But the invisible battles happen somewhere far more important, inside the mind. Every single day, without realizing it, you fight an invisible war. A war between fear and courage, between patience and anger, between confidence and doubt, between discipline and comfort. Most people believe their greatest challenges exist outside of them. A difficult boss, a financial problem, a broken relationship, a lack of opportunity. But if you look closely at history, you discover something remarkable. The people who changed the world first learned to control themselves. Because before you can master a business, you must master your emotions. Before you can lead others, you must lead yourself. Before you can dominate life's challenges, you must first win the battle happening inside your own mind. This audiobook is not about becoming emotionless. It is about becoming emotionally powerful. There is a difference. An emotionless person avoids feeling. An emotionally powerful person feels everything but remains in control. Imagine standing in the middle of the ocean during a violent storm. The waves rise higher. The wind grows stronger. The sky becomes darker. A small boat is thrown in every direction. But beneath that same ocean, thousands of feet below the surface, everything is calm, still, silent. The storm exists only on the surface. Your mind works the same way. Most people live only on the surface. Every criticism shakes them. Every failure breaks them. Every disappointment controls them. Every opinion changes their direction. Their emotions become like waves, always rising, always falling, always reacting. But emotionally strong people live differently. They have learned to go deeper. The storm still exists. Problems still appear. People still criticize them. Life still becomes difficult. But beneath the surface, there is calmness. That calmness is their greatest strength. Another important truth is that every challenge tests your emotions before it tests your ability. Think about the last difficult situation you faced. Perhaps someone insulted you. Perhaps you failed at something important. Perhaps life did not go according to plan. What happened first? Did the situation defeat you immediately? Or did your emotional reaction decide what happened next? Most people lose emotionally before they lose physically. Fear convinces them to quit. Anger convinces them to react. Doubt convinces them to stop trying. The challenge itself was never the biggest obstacle. Their emotional response was. This is why two people can face the exact same situation and produce completely different outcomes. One person sees failure. The other sees feedback. One sees rejection. The other sees redirection. One sees an ending. The other sees a beginning. The situation remained the same. Only the emotional interpretation changed. That interpretation changed everything. Another powerful lesson is that emotions are excellent servants but terrible leaders. Imagine hiring someone to drive your car. Would you choose a person who changes direction every few minutes? Who speeds up whenever they feel excited? Who slams the brakes whenever they become afraid? Of course not. Yet millions of people allow their emotions to drive every decision they make. They feel motivated, so they work. They feel discouraged, so they stop. They feel confident, so they try. They feel uncertain, so they quit. Their future becomes controlled by emotional weather. The problem with emotional weather is that it changes constantly. Some mornings you feel unstoppable. Other mornings you feel exhausted. Some days confidence appears. Other days doubt becomes louder. If your actions depend entirely on your emotions, your progress will always remain unpredictable. Emotionally powerful people reverse this relationship. They allow values to lead, not emotions. Their emotions become passengers, not drivers. This simple change transforms everything. Another important truth is that emotional mastery creates freedom. Most people believe freedom means doing whatever they want. Real freedom is much deeper. Real freedom is remaining calm when someone tries to provoke you. Remaining patient when life becomes frustrating. Remaining focused when distractions surround you. Remaining hopeful when circumstances become difficult. That kind of freedom cannot be purchased. It cannot be borrowed. It must be developed, one decision at a time. Another lesson that many people never learn is that your emotions influence every important area of your life. Your career, your relationships, your finances, your health, your confidence, your leadership. Every important decision passes through your emotional state before becoming action. Imagine making financial decisions while angry, your relationship decisions while insecure, career decisions while afraid. The quality of your emotions directly influences the quality of your choices, and the quality of your choices determines the quality of your life. This is why emotional intelligence has become one of the greatest competitive advantages in the modern world. Skills matter, knowledge matters, experience matters, but the ability to remain calm while others panic, to think clearly while others become emotional, to remain disciplined while others become distracted, those qualities separate extraordinary people from ordinary ones. Another powerful truth is that life will never stop testing you. There will always be difficult people, unexpected setbacks, moments of uncertainty, days when nothing goes according to plan. You cannot eliminate every challenge, but you can change who you become while facing them. The strongest people are not those who avoid storms. They are the ones who learn how to stand steady inside them. Imagine an enormous oak tree during a powerful windstorm. Small branches bend, leaves fall. The wind roars from every direction, yet the tree remains standing. Why? Because its strength was built long before the storm arrived. Its roots grew quietly for years beneath the surface. Nobody celebrated those roots. Nobody noticed them. But when the storm finally came, those invisible roots became everything. Emotional strength works the same way. The calmness you build today will protect you during tomorrow's challenges. The patience you practice today will guide tomorrow's decisions. The discipline you develop today will create tomorrow's opportunities. Everything you build internally eventually appears externally. Finally, imagine yourself 1 year from today. Two versions of you exist. One continues reacting emotionally to every situation, allowing anger to control conversations, allowing fear to control opportunities, allowing doubt to control dreams. The other version begins mastering emotions, learning to pause before reacting, learning to stay calm under pressure, learning to think clearly during chaos. Those two people will not simply experience different emotions. They will create completely different lives. Because every challenge first asks one question: can you master yourself? If the answer is yes, most other challenges become far easier to overcome. And that journey begins now, because in the next part, you will discover why your emotions silently control nearly every decision you make, and how understanding this hidden process can completely transform the direction of your life. Your emotions decide your future before you do. Every day you make hundreds of decisions. Some are small, some are life-changing. What to say, what to ignore, what to believe, what to pursue, who to trust, when to act, when to wait. Most people believe these decisions are guided by logic, but the truth is far more surprising. Long before logic speaks, emotion has already whispered its opinion, and most of the time, that whisper determines the final decision. Imagine walking through a forest just before sunset. You suddenly hear a loud noise behind you. Before you even turn around, before you think, before you analyze, your heart beats faster, your muscles tighten, your breathing changes, your body reacts instantly. Only afterward does your mind begin asking, "What was that?" This is how the human brain has worked for thousands of years. Emotion reacts first. Logic explains later. Long ago, this helped human beings survive. If danger appeared, there was no time for long discussions. The body needed immediate action. Run, hide, protect yourself. That emotional system kept our ancestors alive. The problem is that the modern world is very different. Today, the greatest dangers are often not physical. They are emotional. Fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of criticism, fear of uncertainty. Yet your brain often responds to these situations as if your survival depends on them. A presentation at work feels like danger. Starting a business feels like danger. Speaking honestly in a relationship feels like danger. Trying something new feels like danger. The challenge is no longer the situation itself. The challenge is convincing your emotions that growth is not the same as danger. Another important truth is that your emotions create stories. Imagine receiving a short message from someone you care about. The message simply says, "We need to talk," nothing else. Immediately, your mind begins writing a story. Maybe something is wrong. Maybe they are upset. Maybe you made a mistake. Within minutes, your emotions begin reacting to a situation that exists only inside your imagination. Hours later, you discover they simply wanted advice about a small problem. Nothing terrible happened. Yet your emotions already experience stress because of the story your mind created. This happens every day. People suffer over conversations that never occur, problems that never appear, failures that never happen. The imagination becomes more powerful than reality. Emotionally strong people learn to question these stories before believing them. They ask, "Do I know this is true?" Or, "Am I simply assuming the worst?" That simple question has prevented countless unnecessary fears. Another powerful lesson is that emotions love certainty. The unknown makes them uncomfortable. This is why so many people remain trapped in situations they dislike. Jobs they have outgrown, relationships that no longer help them grow, dreams they never pursue. Why? because even an unhappy certainty often feels safer than an uncertain opportunity. Your emotions whisper, "Stay where you are." Logic quietly replies, "But you could become so much more." Every meaningful improvement requires walking into uncertainty, and uncertainty always creates emotional resistance. That resistance does not mean you are moving in the wrong direction. Often, it means you are leaving your comfort zone for the first time. Another important idea is that your emotional habits become your life habits. A person who repeatedly chooses fear eventually avoids opportunity. A person who repeatedly chooses anger eventually damages relationships. A person who repeatedly chooses gratitude begins seeing possibilities. A person who repeatedly chooses patience makes wiser decisions. Emotions are not isolated experiences. They become repeated patterns. Those patterns become habits. Those habits quietly shape destiny. This is why mastering one emotional response today can completely change your future tomorrow. Another powerful truth is that your environment constantly influences your emotional state. Walk into a peaceful library. Your breathing slows. Your thoughts become quieter. Walk into a crowded room filled with arguments and tension. Your body immediately notices the difference. Without saying a word, environments communicate emotions. The same thing happens digitally. Spend 1 hour reading negative news. Notice how your thoughts change. Spend 1 hour comparing yourself to strangers online. Notice how confidence changes. Spend 1 hour learning something meaningful. Notice how hope changes. Your emotional world is heavily influenced by what you repeatedly consume. This is why emotionally intelligent people carefully protect their mental environment. They understand that every piece of information plants a seed. Eventually, those seeds become thoughts. Thoughts become emotions. Emotions become actions. Actions become life. Another lesson is that people often confuse feelings with facts. Feeling afraid does not always mean you are in danger. Feeling uncertain does not mean you are incapable. Feeling rejected does not mean you have no value. Feeling overwhelmed does not mean you cannot succeed. Emotions are signals, not permanent truths. Imagine driving a car. The dashboard lights tell you information. They are important, but they are not the destination. You would never allow a warning light to grab the steering wheel. Yet millions of people allow temporary emotions to control the direction of their lives. Emotionally mature people pay attention to emotions, but they do not surrender control to them. They listen, reflect, then decide. Another important truth is that every emotion carries energy. Anger creates energy. Fear creates energy. Excitement creates energy. Sadness creates energy. The question is never whether energy exists. The question is where that energy goes. Some people use anger to destroy. Others use it to improve. Some people use fear to hide. Others use it to prepare. Some people use disappointment to quit. Others use it to grow stronger. The emotion remained the same, only the direction changed. This is one of the greatest secrets of emotional mastery. You cannot always choose what you feel, but you can choose what you do with what you feel. Finally, imagine two people standing in front of the exact same challenge. One immediately thinks, "What if I fail?" The other asks, "What can I learn?" One emotion creates hesitation. The other creates curiosity. One stays where they are. The other moves forward. Years later, people call one person lucky, the other unlucky. But luck had very little to do with it. Their emotional habits quietly created completely different futures. Because every major decision in your life passes through one invisible doorway, your emotions. Learn to master that doorway, and you begin mastering your future. In the next part, we will explore the invisible battle between emotion and logic and discover why the strongest people are not those who never feel emotional, but those who have learned when to listen to their emotions and when to rise above them. The war between emotion and logic. Imagine you are standing at the edge of a diving board. The water below is calm. You know how to swim. You know it is safe. You have watched dozens of other people jump. Logic tells you there is nothing to fear, yet your heart begins beating faster. Your hands become tense. Your feet refuse to move. For a moment, emotion becomes louder than logic. This is one of the greatest battles every human being faces. Not the battle between success and failure. Not the battle between opportunity and difficulty. The battle between what you know and what you feel. Most people assume that if they know the right thing to do, they will naturally do it. But life proves otherwise. People know they should exercise, yet they remain inactive. They know they should save money, yet they continue spending carelessly. They know they should speak honestly, yet fear keeps them silent. Knowledge is rarely the problem. The problem is allowing emotion to overpower knowledge. This is why mastering your emotions is far more valuable than collecting endless information. Another important truth is that logic speaks quietly. Emotion speaks loudly. Logic says, be patient. Emotion says, react now. Logic says, think carefully. Emotion says, do something immediately. Logic says, this problem will pass. Emotion says, this is a disaster. Whichever voice becomes stronger usually determines your actions. This is why emotionally intelligent people learn an important habit. They never make permanent decisions during temporary emotional storms. They understand that emotions change. Anger fades. Fear fades. Disappointment fades. Excitement fades. But the consequences of emotional decisions often remain. Imagine sending an angry message late at night. For a few seconds, it feels satisfying. The emotion demands expression. But the next morning, after your mind becomes calm, regret often appears. Nothing changed except your emotional state. The situation remained the same. Only your perspective changed. That is why patience is one of the greatest forms of intelligence. It creates space between feeling and action. Inside that space, wisdom has a chance to speak. Another powerful lesson is that emotional reactions are often habits. Think about two different people facing criticism. The first immediately becomes defensive, raises their voice, explains why everyone else is wrong. The second listens quietly, asks questions, reflects before responding. Neither reaction happened by accident. Both people have practiced those emotional habits for years. This means emotional control is trainable. It is not a gift reserved for a fortunate few. It is a skill. Every time you pause before reacting, you strengthen it. Every time you breathe before speaking, you strengthen it. Every time you choose understanding instead of impulse, You strengthen it. Eventually, calmness becomes natural, not because life became easier, because you became stronger. Another important idea is that emotions often exaggerate reality. Imagine walking into a room where everyone suddenly becomes quiet. Your mind immediately begins creating explanations. They were talking about me. They do not like me. I said something wrong. Hours later, you discover they simply finished their conversation. Nothing was wrong at all. The event lasted only a few seconds. The emotional story lasted for hours. This happens more often than most people realize. People react to imagined meanings instead of actual facts. Emotion fills empty spaces with assumptions. Logic waits for evidence. This is why emotionally mature people ask themselves, what facts do I actually have? Not, what story am I creating? That single question has the power to prevent unnecessary conflict, anxiety, and regret. Another powerful truth is that challenges reveal emotional habits. Pressure exposes character. When everything is easy, almost anyone appears patient. Almost anyone appears confident. Almost anyone appears disciplined. But difficulty removes the mask. Suddenly, impatience appears. Fear appears. Frustration appears. This is not failure. It is feedback. Challenges reveal what still needs strengthening. Imagine lifting weights for the first time. Weak muscles become obvious immediately. That does not mean you should stop training. It means you have discovered where growth is needed. Emotional challenges work exactly the same way. They reveal weaknesses so they can become strengths. Another important lesson is learning the difference between reacting and responding. Reaction is automatic. Response is intentional. Reaction happens in seconds. Response requires awareness. Reaction is driven by emotion. Response is guided by wisdom. Think about water being poured onto two different surfaces. One surface is smooth. The water immediately runs in every direction. The other surface is deep soil. The water slowly sinks beneath the surface before anything happens. Your mind can become like that soil. Instead of reacting instantly, you absorb the experience. Reflect, then respond with clarity. That small pause can completely change conversations, relationships, careers, even entire lives. Another powerful truth is that calmness creates influence. Who do people naturally trust during a crisis? The loudest person? Usually not. The most emotional person? Rarely. People look for the calm person, the steady person, the individual who continues thinking clearly while everyone else panics. Calmness communicates confidence. It creates trust. It creates leadership. This is why emotional control is not simply a personal skill. It is a leadership skill. Whether you lead a family, a business, a team, or simply yourself. People follow emotional stability. Another important idea is that emotional mastery begins with awareness. You cannot change what you refuse to notice. Pay attention to your emotional patterns. What makes you angry? What makes you fearful? What makes you lose patience? What situations repeatedly control your emotions? The answers to those questions reveal where your greatest opportunities for growth exist. Awareness always comes before transformation. Finally, imagine yourself 1 year from today. The same difficult situations still exist. People still disagree with you. Unexpected problems still appear. Life is still unpredictable. But something has changed. You no longer react immediately. You pause. You breathe. You observe. Then you choose your response. That one habit changes every conversation, every decision, every relationship, every challenge, because the strongest person is not the one who never experiences emotion. The strongest person is the one who refuses to let emotion make their decisions. And once you master that skill, you begin mastering life itself. In the next part, we will discover why remaining calm under pressure is one of the greatest competitive advantages any person can develop, and how calmness can become your greatest source of strength when everyone else is losing control. Remain calm while everyone else loses control. Imagine two captains sailing across the same ocean. Without warning, dark clouds gather overhead. The wind becomes stronger. Massive waves begin crashing against both ships. One captain panics. He shouts orders without thinking, changes direction every few seconds, allows fear to control every decision. The crew becomes frightened, confused, uncertain. The second captain experiences the same storm. He feels the same danger. He sees the same waves. But he does something different. He becomes calmer. He studies the wind. He trusts his training. He gives clear instructions. The storm does not disappear, but because the captain remains steady, the ship survives. Life works the same way. The greatest leaders are not those who avoid storms. They are the people who remain calm inside them. Every challenge asks the same question. Will you become controlled by pressure, or will you remain in control despite pressure? Most people believe calmness is a personality trait, something you are born with, but that is not true. Calmness is a skill, a habit, a decision repeated so many times that eventually it becomes part of your character. Another important truth is that pressure does not create character. Pressure reveals it. Imagine squeezing an orange. What comes out? Orange juice. Not because the pressure created it, because it was already inside. The same thing happens with people. Pressure reveals what already exists beneath the surface. If anger exists inside, pressure exposes it. If fear exists inside, pressure exposes it. If patience exists inside, pressure reveals that too. This is why difficult moments are valuable. They show you exactly what needs strengthening. They expose the emotional habits you normally keep hidden. Another powerful lesson is that calm people think differently. When most people face a problem, their first question is, "Why is this happening to me?" Immediately, their attention moves toward frustration, blame, self-pity. Emotion grows stronger. Calm people ask different questions. What is this situation trying to teach me? What is the next best decision? What can I control right now? Notice the difference. The first questions create emotional chaos. The second questions create emotional clarity. Questions shape focus. Focus shapes emotion. Emotion shapes action. This is why changing your questions can completely change your experience. Another important idea is that panic steals intelligence. Think back to a moment when you became extremely emotional. Perhaps you were angry, afraid, embarrassed. How clearly were you thinking? Probably not very well. Emotion narrows attention. The brain becomes obsessed with immediate survival. Long-term thinking disappears. Creativity disappears. Wisdom disappears. This is why calmness becomes such a powerful advantage. While everyone else is reacting emotionally, calm people continue thinking clearly. They notice opportunities others miss. They solve problems others cannot see. They make decisions others regret not making. Calmness is not passive, it is powerful. Another lesson is that your breathing influences your emotions more than you realize. Notice what happens when fear appears. Your breathing becomes shallow, fast, uneven. Now think about moments when you felt peaceful. Your breathing became slower, deeper, steadier. This relationship works both ways. Your emotions influence your breathing, but your breathing also influences your emotions. This is why emotionally intelligent people often pause before responding. Not because they have nothing to say, because they understand that one slow breath can interrupt an emotional reaction. That single pause creates space. Inside that space, better decisions become possible. Another powerful truth is that emotional control is built long before emotional pressure arrives. A firefighter does not learn courage during the fire. A pilot does not learn confidence during turbulence. Preparation happens beforehand. The same principle applies to life. If you practice patience during ordinary moments, patience appears during difficult ones. If you practice discipline during quiet seasons, discipline appears during stressful seasons. Your daily habits become your emergency response. This is why today's emotional training becomes tomorrow's emotional strength. Another important lesson is learning to separate events from identity. Many people experience one failure and immediately say, "I am a failure." One rejection becomes, "I am not good enough." One mistake becomes, "I always ruin everything." Notice what happened. A single event became a permanent identity. Calm people refuse to make that mistake. They understand that failure is something that happened, not someone they are. Mistakes become lessons, not labels. That simple distinction protects confidence during difficult seasons. Another powerful idea is that calmness is contagious. Imagine walking into a room where everyone is arguing. Voices are raised. People are frustrated. Then one person enters. They remain composed. They listen carefully. They speak slowly. Without realizing it, the emotional atmosphere begins changing. Because emotions spread, fear spreads, anger spreads, but peace spreads as well. This is why emotionally strong people influence entire environments. They become emotional anchors. While everyone else drifts with the storm, they remain steady, and others naturally begin following their example. Another important truth is that challenges rarely last forever. Think about the hardest moment you experienced 5 years ago. At the time, it probably felt overwhelming, permanent, impossible. Yet here you are, still standing, still growing, still moving forward. The storm ended. It always does. Remembering this creates perspective. Instead of asking, "How will I survive this?" you begin asking, "What will this experience teach me before it passes?" Perspective transforms panic into patience. Another lesson is that strength often looks quiet. Movies often portray strength as loud, aggressive, dominant. Real strength usually looks different. It remains silent during insults, patient during delays, focused during chaos, compassionate during conflict. Anyone can shout. Few people can remain calm. Anyone can react. Few people can respond wisely. That quiet strength becomes impossible to ignore. People trust it, respect it, follow it. Finally, imagine yourself standing in the middle of your next major challenge. The pressure is real. The uncertainty is real. Nothing about the situation has become easier. But something inside you has changed. Instead of rushing into fear, you breathe. Instead of reacting with anger, you observe. Instead of allowing emotion to lead, you allow wisdom to speak first. That single habit changes everything, because challenges do not disappear, but your ability to handle them becomes greater. And when your inner strength becomes greater than your outer problems, you stop fearing the storm. You become the calmest person inside it. In the next part, we will explore how pain, failure, and disappointment can become your greatest teachers, and why the people who dominate life's challenges are often the ones who learned how to transform suffering into unstoppable strength. Turn pain into power, before pain turns into bitterness. Every person experiences pain. It does not matter how intelligent you are, how wealthy you become, how disciplined you are. Pain visits everyone. Failure, rejection, loss, disappointment, broken trust, dreams that do not unfold the way you expected. Life guarantees none of us a path without hardship. The difference is not whether pain arrives. The difference is what pain leaves behind. For some people, pain becomes bitterness. For others, pain becomes wisdom. Some people allow suffering to make them smaller. Others allow suffering to make them stronger. The event may be exactly the same. The outcome is completely different. Why? Because pain does not automatically improve you. Pain only offers the opportunity to improve. The decision is always yours. Imagine two pieces of metal placed into the same fire. One bends under the heat. The other becomes stronger. The fire was not unfair. The fire treated both pieces exactly the same. The difference was found within the metal itself. Life works in much the same way. Challenges expose what already exists inside you. If you respond with courage, courage grows. If you respond with wisdom, wisdom grows. If you respond with anger, anger grows. Your response determines what pain produces. Another important truth is that emotional pain often lasts longer than physical pain. A broken bone heals. A wound closes. But harsh words can remain in someone's memory for years. One betrayal can influence future relationships. One failure can convince someone to stop trying. One rejection can create years of self-doubt. This is why emotional healing matters, not because forgetting is possible, but because carrying old pain into every new chapter creates unnecessary suffering. Imagine trying to run a race while carrying a heavy backpack filled with stones. Each stone represents an old disappointment, an old mistake, an old resentment, an old regret. You may still move forward, but every step becomes harder. Eventually, exhaustion arrives. Not because the road is impossible, because you never put the weight down. Many people spend years trying to change their future while refusing to release their past. Growth becomes difficult because yesterday continues stealing energy from today. Another powerful lesson is that failure is information. Nothing more, nothing less. Most people experience failure and immediately attach meaning to it. I failed becomes, I am not good enough. That did not work becomes, I will never succeed. Notice how quickly the mind changes an event into an identity. Emotionally strong people refuse to make that mistake. They ask different questions. What did this experience teach me? What can I improve? What will I do differently next time? These questions transform failure into education. Every successful person has failed, not once, not twice, hundreds of times. The difference is that they refused to let failure become their identity. They allowed it to become their teacher instead. Another important truth is that resilience grows through recovery. Many people believe mentally strong individuals never fall apart. That is not true. They experience disappointment. They experience grief. They experience fear. The difference is recovery. They recover faster. They learn faster. They adapt faster. Think about a tree during a powerful storm. Strong winds force its branches to bend. But when the storm ends, the tree rises again. It does not apologize for bending. It simply continues growing. That is resilience. Not refusing to bend, refusing to stay down. Another lesson is that suffering often changes your perspective. Think about the hardest experience of your life. At the time, you probably wished it had never happened. Yet, if you look closely, perhaps it taught you something. Maybe it made you stronger. Maybe it made you kinder. Maybe it helped you appreciate people more deeply. Maybe it showed you what truly matters. Pain has a strange ability. It removes illusions. It forces clarity. It reminds us that time is limited, that relationships matter, that health matters, that purpose matters. Things we often ignore during comfortable seasons suddenly become precious. Another powerful truth is that bitterness and wisdom both begin with the same experience: disappointment. The difference is the story you tell yourself afterward. One person says, "This happened because life is unfair." Another says, "This happened because life is teaching me." One becomes trapped. The other becomes transformed. Your story creates your emotional future. Choose it carefully. Another important lesson is forgiveness. Many people misunderstand forgiveness. They believe forgiving someone means approving of what happened. It does not. Forgiveness is not saying the pain was acceptable. Forgiveness is choosing not to carry that pain forever. Because resentment is like drinking poison while expecting someone else to suffer. The person who continues carrying anger usually experiences the greatest damage. Forgiveness is not always easy. Sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes tremendous courage. But every step toward forgiveness is also a step toward freedom. Not freedom for the other person, freedom for yourself. Another powerful idea is that every challenge prepares you for another. Life rarely wastes your struggles. The patience you learn today may help you through tomorrow's uncertainty. The courage you develop during one failure may help you seize a future opportunity. The discipline you build during difficult seasons may become the reason you succeed later. Nothing meaningful is ever completely lost. Experience becomes wisdom. Wisdom becomes confidence. Confidence becomes strength. This is why emotionally intelligent people trust the process even when they do not understand it. They believe that every challenge carries a lesson worth discovering. Finally, imagine yourself years from now. Someone asks, "What made you so strong?" You smile, not because life was easy, but because it was difficult. Not because you avoided pain, but because you learned from it. Every disappointment became preparation. Every setback became instruction. Every failure became another reason to continue. That is how ordinary people become extraordinary. Not by escaping hardship, by allowing hardship to shape them into someone wiser, someone calmer, someone stronger. Because pain will always ask you one question: will you become bitter, or will you become better? The answer to that question will influence every chapter that follows. And in the next part, we will discover how emotionally powerful people develop an unbreakable mind, one that remains steady regardless of fear, pressure, or uncertainty. Build an unbreakable mind that cannot be shaken. Imagine holding two glasses. One is made of thin glass. The other is forged from solid steel. Now imagine dropping both onto the ground. The first one shatters instantly. The second one barely changes. Life treats people in much the same way. Pressure falls on everyone. Disappointment visits everyone. Criticism reaches everyone. Unexpected problems arrive for everyone. The difference is not the pressure. The difference is the strength of what lies beneath it. Some minds break under pressure. Others become even stronger because of it. This is why emotional mastery is not simply about controlling feelings. It is about building a mind that remains steady regardless of what happens around it. An unbreakable mind is not born, it is built. One decision at a time, one challenge at a time, one disciplined response at a time. Another important truth is that mental strength grows through resistance. Imagine lifting the same light weight every day. Your muscles eventually stop growing. Why? Because they are no longer challenged. Growth always requires resistance. The same principle applies to the mind. Every difficult conversation strengthens courage. Every disappointment strengthens resilience. Every failure strengthens wisdom. Every setback strengthens patience. The challenge itself is never the enemy. Avoiding the challenge is. Many people pray for an easier life. Very few pray to become stronger. Yet strength is far more valuable than comfort. Because comfort disappears the moment life becomes difficult. Strength remains. Another powerful lesson is that your inner dialogue shapes your emotional world. Pay attention to the way you speak to yourself. After making a mistake, what do you hear? I always fail. I am not good enough. I ruin everything. These thoughts may seem harmless, but repeated often enough, they become beliefs. Beliefs become identity. Identity becomes behavior. Eventually, you begin living according to words that were never true. Emotionally powerful people speak differently to themselves, not because they ignore mistakes, because they refuse to let mistakes define them. Instead of saying, "I failed," they say, "I learned." Instead of saying, "I cannot," they ask, "How can I?" Instead of saying, "This is impossible," they ask, "What is the first step?" Small changes in language create enormous changes in perspective, and perspective changes everything. Another important truth is that comparison quietly destroys emotional strength. Imagine climbing a mountain with a group of people. Instead of appreciating your progress, you constantly look at the person ahead of you. No matter how far you climb, you feel behind. No matter how much you improve, you feel inadequate. This is exactly what comparison does. It steals satisfaction from progress. The modern world makes comparison effortless. Every day you see someone richer, someone stronger, someone more successful, someone seemingly happier. But you rarely see the years of struggle behind those moments. You only see the highlight, never the sacrifice, never the loneliness, never the failures. Emotionally mature people understand this. They stop competing with everyone else. Instead, they compete with yesterday's version of themselves. That is the only competition that truly matters. Another powerful lesson is learning to become comfortable with uncertainty. Many people spend their entire lives searching for guarantees. They want certainty before making decisions, certainty before taking risks, certainty before chasing dreams. But certainty is one thing life rarely offers. No career is guaranteed. No relationship is guaranteed. No opportunity is guaranteed. Waiting for complete certainty often means waiting forever. The strongest people move forward despite uncertainty. Not recklessly, but courageously. They understand that confidence is not knowing everything will work. Confidence is believing they will adapt if things do not. That belief creates extraordinary emotional freedom. Another important idea is emotional endurance. Anyone can remain calm for 5 minutes. The challenge is remaining calm for 5 difficult months. Anyone can stay positive after 1 setback. The challenge is staying hopeful after 10 setbacks. Emotional endurance is the ability to continue carrying hope when circumstances encourage despair. This quality separates temporary winners from lifelong achievers, because every meaningful dream eventually demands endurance. There will be delays, misunderstandings, unexpected obstacles, moments when progress seems invisible. Emotionally strong people continue anyway, not because they enjoy difficulty, because they understand something important. Temporary discomfort should never destroy a permanent vision. Another powerful truth is that your standards determine your future. Many people lower their standards whenever life becomes difficult. They skip responsibilities, abandon routines, accept less from themselves. But emotionally powerful people protect their standards, especially during hard times. Not because perfection matters, because standards create identity. Identity creates consistency. Consistency creates results. The strongest people are not perfect. They are simply unwilling to negotiate with their core values. Another important lesson is that peace comes from self-mastery. People often search everywhere for peace. More money, a better job, a different city, another relationship, a different lifestyle. Yet many carry the same emotional habits wherever they go. The scenery changes, the struggle remains, because peace is not found in a place.
And if a bird returns to the same area every day, those observations accumulate. Days become weeks, weeks become years, until the bird possesses a surprisingly detailed understanding of the environment surrounding a house, including the humans inside it. Most people never think about this. They assume they are the observers, the ones watching nature. But sometimes the relationship may be reversed. Because while you occasionally notice the bird outside your window, that bird may have been noticing you for a very long time. And the longer it watches, the more interesting the story becomes. Because birds are not only learning what happens inside your home, some may be using that information to predict your behavior before you even step outside. Because birds are not only learning what happens inside your home, some may be using that information to predict your behavior before you even step outside. Number 4. Birds learn your schedule. One of the most remarkable discoveries in animal behavior is how quickly birds learn routines. A feeder bird does not need a clock. A crow does not need a calendar. They simply watch patterns. The porch light comes on at 6. The kitchen window opens at 7. The person with the bird seed appears shortly afterward. After enough repetition, birds stop reacting to events. They begin anticipating them. Researchers studying urban birds have repeatedly observed species arriving at food locations before food actually appears. They are not guessing, they are predicting. The bird outside your window may know when you normally wake up, when you leave for work, when you eat lunch. Not because it understands time the way humans do, because it understands patterns. And patterns often tell the future. Number 5. Birds notice things humans overlook. Humans are surprisingly distracted creatures. Phones, television, conversations, schedules. Birds have a different job. Their survival depends on observation. A slight change in movement, a new object in the yard, an unfamiliar face approaching the house. These details matter. Researchers studying crows often describe them as environmental monitors. They notice changes quickly, sometimes astonishingly quickly. This may explain why certain birds seem interested when something unusual happens around a home. Construction begins. A new pet arrives. A vehicle appears that was never there before. The birds notice. And because they compare today's environment with yesterday's, even small changes can attract attention. To a bird, your yard is not static. It is a constantly changing puzzle, and they are paying attention. Number 6. Some birds recognize individual people through the window. This sounds almost impossible until you look at the research. Studies have shown that crows can recognize specific human faces for years. Mockingbirds identify people who repeatedly approach nests. Pigeons distinguish between humans who feed them and humans who chase them away. The person moving behind the glass is not necessarily just a human. To the bird, it may be a specific human. The one who fills the feeder. The one who lets the dog outside. The one who startles birds by opening the door suddenly. Each person becomes associated with different experiences. Over time, birds develop expectations. Some humans are linked to food, some to safety, others to caution. The bird does not see a stranger every day. It sees someone it already knows. Number 7. The bird outside may be studying you more than you realize. Most people think they notice birds occasionally. A robin on the fence, a cardinal in the tree, a crow on a power line. Brief moments, then life continues. But from the bird's perspective, the situation may be very different. That robin may visit your yard every morning. That crow may pass over your house every afternoon. That chickadee may return to the same feeder dozens of times each week. The observations accumulate, day after day, season after season. The bird begins recognizing familiar patterns, familiar sounds, familiar faces, and eventually something strange happens. Your home stops being just another house. It becomes a known place, a place with predictable people, predictable routines, predictable opportunities. Most people never think about this. They assume the bird outside the window is simply passing by. But the next time you notice a bird staring toward your house, you may find yourself wondering something difficult to dismiss. While you were busy living your life inside that home, how much of it has already been quietly observed from the other side of the glass?